We've got milestone performances by Connor McDavid and Andrei Vasilevskiy, our bi-weekly women's hockey spotlight, and an exciting weekend of hockey ahead. We've got all that and more on today's Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome to the Friday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On NHL your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you get new episodes as soon as they drop. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets. If you win that first $5 bet, just visit FanDuel.com to get started. I'm Gil Martin from Locked On Islanders. I'm here every Friday with Rachel Donner of Locked On Flyers. And how are you doing this Friday, Rachel?
Pretty good. Still laughing a lot about last night's Flyers game, but we'll get into that a little bit today.
Laughing all the way to 2 points. So
sure.
That is a good thing. But how about, let's start with the big Connor McDavid news. 1,000 points in his career. And it didn't take him long, relatively speaking, to get there.
Yeah, 659 regular season games to get there. Just tremendous. Fourth fastest ever to get to that point. The 99th player overall in NHL history. And we knew he was a generational talent, at his draft. But now we're 10 seasons into the Connor McDavid experience. And it's really weird, right? Because I think that if you kind of transport yourself to when he was drafted, you might have thought that the Edmonton Oilers would have won a Stanley Cup by now.
Well, they came within one goal last year.
I know. So they've gotten super close, but not quite there yet. And but yet we're 10 years into Connor McDavid. I cannot believe how fast this has gone.
Yeah, it does fly by. I mean, look, he is sort of in danger of being the next Marcel Dion, for example, a guy who absolutely had a Hall of Fame career but never won a Stanley Cup. I don't know. I think as a hockey fan, not as an Oilers fan or as somebody with skin in the game, you want to see him have at least that one moment.
Yeah, I really do. And I just wonder if it is ever going to happen, though. Those thoughts are definitely creeping into a lot of people's minds right now.
Yeah. And now, you're 10 years into his career. You're getting closer to the point where you figure those numbers start to go down a little bit. Maybe not this year, but 2 or 3 years down the road, 4 years down the road. But
I don't know, man. You look at Sid and Ovi, and they're still producing pretty solidly. So
they are.
There is a blueprint for it.
There is a blueprint, but when was the last time either of them won a cup?
Well, that's also Ovi did not too long ago.
Not too long ago. That's what, 4 or 5 years ago now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So be interesting to see, but congratulations to Connor McDavid. Just an unbelievable accomplishment. And, when you're in the same sentence with the Wayne Gretzky's of the world, you're doing something right.
Absolutely.
And then Andrei Vasilevskiy also coming up with a major milestone in his career, and congratulations to him. And this is something that I know we've been waiting for quite some time, for Vasilevskiy to get that 300th win.
Yeah, he was sitting on it for 3 games. Then his 4th game, he finally got the 300th win. And I think that, that was mostly due to the team in front of him. I got to say, having watched one of those games, because they played the Flyers in that stretch. But I think that, and some of them went to a shootout too. So there is that. But again, like now this is a guy who has won a Stanley Cup first off. So this is kind of a nice extra cap for him. It took him 490 games to get there. That is what's tremendous to me it's the record. It's just like absolutely bonkers how good this guy has been.
Yeah, and then you think about this, he got there 31 games faster than the previous record holder, the great Jacques Plante. So it's just an impressive performance. And, if you have 300 wins in 490 games, that is, it speaks to the team in front of you over the course of your career. But obviously, Vasilevskiy has been a big reason why the team in front of him won so many hockey games.
Absolutely. Like undeniable there. And I think that, Tampa would be a very different team over the last decade without him.
No question. And he just keeps himself so, cool and collected, and pressure situations do not bother Andrei Vasilevskiy.
Nope, not one bit.
So a new record there. And here we are with probably two future Hall of Famers. I can't see either one of them unless they do something terrible off the ice, not getting into the Hall of Fame.
Well, I don't know. Put a pin in that.
Reaching some major milestones. So congratulations to Connor McDavid and to, Andrei Vasilevskiy. Let's talk a little bit about the Dallas Stars. 7 goals in back-to-back games. And, they're not in first place in their division, but here they are just playing some really good hockey.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think that Global Series losing both games really threw them for a loop, I think, because they're a team that has so much talent and skill there. And to lose those 2 games on an international stage was tough. They come back from that trip and they do beat the Blackhawks first, but then they have to play the Jets, right? Who are just absolutely destroying it out there. And I think to lose that way to the Jets must have been also very tough for them. Then they come back. Now the Pens are a hot mess. So I think beating them 7-1 actually kind of makes sense. But the Bruins are a better team. Not a ton better, but they are definitely a better team. And so to continue that offensive output, I think it's really important for them to kind of set the tone for this kind of next section of the season, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And like we said, they're in a tough division. There's a lot of points that they are going to need to accumulate. And, putting up 7 goals in back-to-back games is impressive. And, Evgeny Dadonov scoring on a penalty shot. He has 4 now in his career, chasing Pavel Bure with 7, but pretty impressive right there. And let's talk a little bit about your Flyers. We talked about Matvei Michkov last week, that he was being benched and kind of in John Tortorella. Well, not his doghouse, but Tortorella trying to get a message through to him. How has he responded?
Yeah, and it is interesting because they sat him for 2 games against the Panthers and the aforementioned Lightning, which they split those 2 games down in Florida. And I think they absolutely missed Michkov's offensive creativity in those 2 games for sure. I think, Tortorella has a very specific teaching methodology as a coach in terms of creating a well-rounded player and trying to create a player with defensive responsibility to some degree, and just how to not make certain mistakes that he's been making. And I will not deny that Michkov has been making mistakes, but what he also brings to the ice offensively and that creativity is really important. So he comes back in, a golden assist versus the Sharks, gets the OT winner in that stupid game last night against the Sens, where they basically had no shots on goal for 2 periods, struggled mightily. Ottawa was just doing everything right. And I cannot imagine what it feels like from the other side of the fence on that. But, coming through in the overtime when there were 2 other guys that had quality breakaway chances in that overtime that it didn't go. But the puck goes on Michkov's stick and he, punches it home. So I think like there's a lot to be said for just letting Michkov be Michkov and then let the chips fall where they may this season and like start to mold him a little bit more next year.
Yeah, I don't know if I could see Torts going that route, but we'll see. But Michkov certainly responding to that benching and
yes,
getting the job done in Philadelphia. All right, we have got a lot more to get to on today's show. We have Erica L. Ayala joining us for our bi-weekly women's hockey spotlight, plus an exciting weekend of NHL action ahead. We've got all that and more coming up on today's Locked On NHL podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Mint Mobile. I love a great deal as much as the next guy, but I'm not going to crawl through a bed of hot coals just to save a few bucks. It has to be easy. No hoops, no BS. So when Mint Mobile said it was easy to get wireless for $15 a month with the purchase of a 3-month plan, I called them on it. Turns out it was really that easy to get wireless for $15 a month. The longest part of the process was this time I spent on hold waiting to break up with my old provider. To get started, go to mintmobile.com/lockedonnhl. There you'll see that right now, all 3-month plans are only $15 a month, including the unlimited plan. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You could use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all of your existing contacts. Find out how easy it is to switch to Mint Mobile and get 3 months of premium wireless service for $15 a month. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/lockedonnhl. That's mintmobile.com/lockedonnhl. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/lockedonnhl. $45 upfront payment required. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speeds slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details.
Nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha Steaks. This year, skip the holiday hustle and bustle and save 50% off gourmet gifts site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, get a $30 reward card when you shop early and score an extra $30 off with promo code NHL. With 5 generations of experience, they consistently deliver the world's best steak experience, and the gifting experts at Omaha Steaks have made it easy to deliver the perfect gift with thoughtfully curated gift packages starting at $89.99. From legendary steaks to mouthwatering desserts and more, save 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $30 off with promo code NHL and a $30 reward card when you shop early. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com and an extra $30 off with promo code NHL. Minimum purchase may apply.
It is time for our bi-weekly women's hockey spotlight. That means we welcome in Erica L. Ayala. And Erica, I know you've got a lot to get to today. Lots of news going on in and around the PWHL. Let's start with some news about jerseys.
That's right. New jerseys in New Jersey and the rest of the cities where the PWHL will play. We know that the teams going into this coming season have names, but now, Rachel, we've got some new threads. And we talked about, some of the logos before, but does it still look like Cleveland might have a women's hockey team with these new jerseys?
I mean, a little bit here. So it's more like a mashup of Ottawa and Cleveland at this point. But God, that Montreal jersey though is absolutely stunning. And yeah. It's gorgeous. And for me, I think the Minnesota Frost logo was the one I like the least. I just don't like the way that F looks. I love purple, but like it looks so much better in context on a jersey. I like it a ton more. So that was good. And I have to reluctantly say I do like the Boston Fleet jersey because
yeah,
it looks really good. I cannot
pretty
deny that.
I feel like you kind of hit the hits there. I think that's what a lot of people are reacting to. A lot of people really like that Montreal jersey. I think it just really stands out. The Siren stands out as well, though I'm not sure I like this kind of gold trim that we've got going here. Obviously they kept the colors that they had when they were just PWHL, insert city, state, region. But I don't know. That's not necessarily for me. I that's the color. The Toronto color also I don't like too much. And yeah, we were talking offline that I don't know enough about Taylor Swift to make the comparison, but I know there is one being made. Something about a cheer uniform. So man, a crossover. Video, yeah. Crossover coming, maybe, who knows? But ultimately, I guess it's just a matter of seeing them in action. Bauer has had some hashtag content for us with the players reacting to the jerseys and things of that nature. Pre-sales have already been pretty successful. So we know how to identify the teams on the ice. And it's a good thing, too. I will say, as a broadcaster, from what I can tell, I'd have to see the numbers again, but these will be easy to spot on the ice, which is huge. And with that, we also have some updates on the 24-25 season regarding Canadian partners. Now, last year, CBC and Sportsnet, I believe it was, and TSN kind of handled everything. But the PWHL announced that there will be a few others joining the fray this year, a comprehensive live coverage, including TSN. We have CBC Radio Canada. You also have Prime Video among the places where you can watch in Canada, so north of our border here. We understand that the PWHL will announce United States broadcast partners, schedule, and talent at a later date. Now, on the one hand, this is going to be huge for Canadian fans. Once again, they will have national coverage of the PWHL. What has been confirmed, though, is that there will be no access via YouTube. And that is something that the PHF shied away from in before being acquired. And it did impact how fans, especially fans who are not in market and international fans, were able to enjoy the games.
And what are your hopes as far as the United States are concerned?
Yeah, that's a great question, Gil. I really do hope that there is a national broadcast. Last year, it was regional, and all of us host a hockey show, and we know how dicey things can get and how many different channels and streaming subscriptions you need sometimes just to keep up with one team. And so this is a whole league now. And so without the YouTube option, I'm curious if there will be a national deal. I will say that last year, the Women's Sports Network was able to show some PWHL games. I don't know how many, if any, they had live. That being said, they still play some, and that is what they call a fast network. So you can find it on Fubo, Freevee, things like that. And so that can be an option, but it's not necessarily the same, Gil, as finding live options, kind of making it appointment television. So hopefully, just like we saw the Canadian markets grow from one year to the next, we'll see that expansion on the US side, which hopefully will include a national deal. But all of this means that we are getting close to the start of the season. We talked about this before, but training camp is getting ready to go, to be underway. And I unfortunately have to also go back to something that we talked about. The Toronto Scepters have announced that Natalie Spooner and Megan Carter, who they signed, a rookie defender who they signed to a 2-year contract, both unfortunately on LTIR, which of course stands for long-term injured reserve. Now, we talked, Rachel, about Natalie Spooner. She had a great story coming into the league, was drafted. A lot of people doubted whether that was a good choice to use a draft pick on a player who was coming back from having her first child, had been on the ice in a while. Turns out it was a great pick for Toronto. Really, Natalie Spooner was fantastic down the stretch for them. Was, the Billie Jean King MVP and forward of the year. Unfortunately, though, in the playoffs, suffered an injury and will not be back, at least for training camp, to start the season for Toronto.
Yeah, it is really unfortunate. Again, like, tremendous story, but it'll be interesting to see how they adjust without her there to start the season, because she's such a huge part of their success last year.
Yeah, for sure. So in anticipation of these training camps, a lot of the teams had their media day. I was able to go to the PWHL New York, now, of course, the Sirens media day last year, and they put a lot of money into their media day. It was super cool. Unfortunately, wasn't able to make it this year, but looking forward to the hashtag content coming from that. All right. We talked a little bit about Natalie Spooner, of course, has been such an integral part of Hockey Canada. And speaking of Hockey Canada, they, at least as of right now, are leading the rivalry series over the United States. We had 3 games, Rachel, and they were pretty high scoring games. On November 6th, the United States gets a win in San Jose, California, 7-2. Then on November 8th, this is a little bit more of what we see in US-Canada games, a shootout win in favor, though, of Hockey Canada. And then the U.S. suffered a loss. This was actually for the Hillary Knight homecoming. I know. So couldn't quite get it done in Hillary Knight's hometown. That was a 4-1 loss. And so, I think for me, what stood out for this rivalry series overall, Rachel, is that the youths are coming.
Yes, they are. And I think, I watched all 3 games, and I will have to say, like, I was genuinely shocked how poorly Canada came out in that first game. Wanted it to be more competitive. And then sure enough, they showed up in game 2, although the US really fought back and came back and tied it up. And that's what forced the shootout in the end. But yeah, it was definitely, some of the younger players making a big impact. Especially, I love Grace Zumwinkle.
Yeah.
Absolutely great performance. And I think that it's a really interesting time in international women's hockey, given, like, there's gonna be, I feel like maybe this is sort of the last year. And did they have a game in Idaho specifically because this is a Hillary Knight farewell tour? Like, are the signs there?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think there's going to be some turnover. And I think it's also going to be interesting, to Rachel's point, Gil, because we've heard that the PWHL, not only we talked about on the last spotlight that they are entertaining and actually have a RFP cycle out for expansion, which means that they're exploring the option of exploring expansion, but also there has been conversation on if and how the PWHL and its success, because I think there was great success in year 1, still some hiccups that they have to figure out, but how that will impact the European market for women's pro hockey. And I think that if we really see the PWHL become everything that was promised for the last handful of years while everything was getting sorted out, it's inevitable to me that European players will start coming over. You think about Finland, Czechia, and the likes, because like we talked about in the rivalry series, Layla Edwards, Grace Zumwinkle, so many different players. There's a lot of young talent also in some of those teams as well. And so I, for one, Gil, would love to see a more international game eventually with the PWHL.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. I think that getting more Europeans over here is a very important sign toward that.
Yeah. And I think it goes into also what we were talking about with broadcasting. No YouTube, at least for this year. Is that something that changes if and when the game becomes a little more international in this league, which is really funded a lot by US based partners like Billie Jean King, Stan Kasten, but really seems to be operated in Canada. So very North American. We're kind of used to that in the hockey landscape, but very curious to see how things go. But that'll do it for this spotlight. We jammed a lot in there, and I'm sure there's things that we missed. But we know the season's coming, more hockey, more exciting hockey. So we can't wait.
Yeah, looking forward to that, Erica. And thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more, all on the same page where you place your bets. And hockey fans, you can check out the odds for your favorite team on the FanDuel app. Go there and check it out today. Just visit FanDuel.com to join. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So we have got a busy schedule ahead this weekend, and some, it's a little more evenly spaced this weekend, I guess, than the typical fall weekend. But let's get started. Washington and Colorado tonight.
Yeah, this is a real interesting matchup, again, because Washington has been off to a very good start overall this season. And I think, the Colorado Avalanche have been a little hit or miss so far and have been struggling a little bit. They get the return of several players, including Nishushkin, who is back from his 6-month suspension. And definitely I think an overall much needed infusion of offense here.
No doubt. And now, Colorado has won 3 straight. They're starting, hopefully, from a Avalanche perspective, to find their game. Let's see how they do against a very talented and surprising Washington Capitals team. And then how about Vegas and Utah getting together in Salt Lake City?
Yeah, I mean, Vegas is just Vegasing this year, just playing generally very well, unfortunately, for the rest of the Pacific Division. And, Utah, I think they got off to a really strong start, but they're 3-5-2 in their last 10. And so, they're struggling to kind of find some cohesiveness to their game, but maybe they can pull one out here against Vegas at home. We shall see.
Saturday, a full 12 games on the schedule, and it all starts at 1 Eastern time. St. Louis is in Boston. 2 inconsistent teams looking to find their way.
That is exactly what it is. And the Blues have surprised me in a very good way and surprised me in a bad way multiple times already this season. And I think, with the Bruins having a tough loss, I personally have seen them play the game after a really tough loss, and it usually does not go well for the other team, and they're at home. So, I think I would put my money on the Bruins for this one.
All right, how about your Flyers hosting the Buffalo Sabres, 2 teams right around NHL 500?
Right. And the Sabres also came off a come from behind overtime win in their last game last night. So I think that against the aforementioned Blues, by the way. So I think that, this is an important game for both teams because these teams are kind of oil and water. There's like a lot of similarities between them, and they don't mix well when they play. And it'll be interesting to see who comes out on top on this one.
Great game down in Tampa, the New Jersey Devils visiting the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Yeah, so this is going to be a tremendous game, in my opinion. If you're going to pick any game to watch on Saturday, honestly, it would be this one. The Devils are, really strong this year, and they won their most recent game. Tampa is really finding their footing this year, and it's in Tampa. They tend to play well there. You'd have to think Vasilevskiy is going to be in this one. Given everything. So looking at that offense that New Jersey has up against this Tampa team, I think is going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Edmonton in Toronto.
This is always fun because I think Edmonton always has a chip on their shoulder about Toronto, even though there isn't really there's a Canadian rivalry there, but it's not the same as some of the other rivalries. So I think it's just kind of like little brother coming to town with superstars on it. But Toronto's a little handicapped right now, a little bit with their lineup, right?
Yeah, they are not at full strength. No question about that. Should be a really good game. And this is the game I think I love the most on the schedule Saturday. The 15-2 Winnipeg Jets visiting the defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers.
Oh yeah, that's going to be fun. That is going to be a lot of fun. I think that, obviously we know Winnipeg is absolutely killing it this year, but Florida is playing very, very well themselves overall, and they're finding ways to win in a lot of games, but they have lost their last two. So is there are they entering kind of a little lull at this part of the season? I think this is a good test for both teams to answer that question. And
then 8:00 Eastern time, the Dallas Stars visit the Minnesota Wild, and the Wild not getting a lot of attention, but they're 11-2-3.
Yeah, I think it is kind of a shame that they're not getting a lot of attention and respect around the league. But I think this is a really good chance for the Dallas Stars to really make a statement here that, we got ourselves together.
4 games on tap for Sunday. The one that stands out the most to me, the Washington Capitals visiting the Vegas Golden Knights.
Yep, absolutely. I think, I really think Vegas wins this game, but I also think that the Capitals aren't going to go down without a fight.
And then the New York Rangers in Seattle to take on the Kraken.
Yeah, the Kraken are also kind of a mystery this season. Sometimes they really show up well, and sometimes I don't even know what team that is. So the Rangers are a lot more consistent overall. So I would think the Rangers would win this one, but that's why they play the games.
We shall see, but a lot of great games on tap for the weekend. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On NHL your first listen today. For your second listen, find Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We will be back on Monday. I will be hosting and interviewing 3 of our local hosts from around the league, covering the biggest stories. And don't forget, Locked On NHL is here every Monday through Friday, bringing you the biggest stories from around the NHL. Have a great weekend, everybody. Stay safe, and thanks for listening to and watching the Locked On NHL podcast.